and I'm talking about Mark McGregor. Mark McGregor will be familiar to regular attendees at our events. He has shared with us on enterprise architecture, on process management, on customer excellence, and today he turns his attention to process mining. With more than 25 years of experience across vendors, analyst firms, and end user organizations, Mark always has interesting insights to share that are often the driver of lively discussions that we carry on here. So Mark, what a pleasure to have you on behalf of our global audience. We're super excited to have you and listen your perspectives on the journey of digital transformation and process mining specifically.
Thanks, Jose, and welcome everyone. It's great to be here again at what is once again a really exciting time for process mining. For some of you that might have been with us back in the spring, we were talking about the changes in the space and things going on. And even since that short time we were last together, we've seen another 2 acquisitions. You know, some of you will have seen the stuff with regard to MyInvenio being acquired by IBM, and you may or may not have seen the latest news literally, you know, in the last few days that Appian has now acquired Lana Labs. So we're seeing a lot of interest in this process mining space. So today I wanted to focus on something a little different. So this is a little bit of an experiment with you guys, and we really would appreciate your feedback because I want to talk to you about other ways of extending or expanding your process mining toolkit, because as I said in the title, you know, all that glitters isn't gold. And in a little while through this presentation, I'm going to be bringing on a very special guest who I will introduce in a few minutes' time to share with us and have a bit of a discussion with her about some of their insights. So jumping straight in, so all that glitters isn't gold. What do I mean by this? Well, you know, let's literally stay with the analogy of gold mining. You know, we all have this vision of these big machines or big mines basically digging out money, right? I mean, you know, there are vendors out there in the process mining space telling us they're going to dig out millions of dollars for us. And we love this idea, you know, because just like these miners, we can see it. The trouble is, that's not how it actually works, is it? And although we talk about process mining as digging for that gold within our process and finding those nuggets, the reality of it is when we think about gold mining or mining for any minerals, oil, gas, call it what you will, there's actually another piece of the jigsaw, right? Before we go bringing in all those machinery and doing all of those drill rigs, someone is going out there doing geological surveys, looking for potentially suitable land where they think there may be gold, oil, whatever. And then they spend a lot of time on exploration, drilling test bores, many of which come to absolutely nothing. So while we focus on the concept of mining as throwing up millions or billions of dollars, we sometimes forget that the real risk and the real heavy investment costs are actually with exploration. So before we can get to mining, we've got to get to exploration. And this is the piece that gets, for me, a little gray and a little muddy in the concept of process mining, because the impression is we just point our process mining tools at our systems and at our data, and oh, up comes insights, and we make massive changes, and we find hidden money lying around everywhere. Well, if we haven't done the exploration, we can't do the mining. And this is the bit that is not particularly well served by traditional mining tools. And in fact, in some ways, I think that traditional process mining, as is marketed and as is sold, is a little bit like panning for gold. And actually what you come up with sometimes is actually pyrite. So these guys are celebrating the fact that it wasn't gold they found, but pyrite. So actually it was just as glittery, but it wasn't real because it wasn't necessarily digging in the right place. They were digging in the stream and hoping to find something. So whilst I'm a real fan of the value of what we get from process mining, I thought it would be really useful to take a little step back and think about, well, how does it really fit in? Now, some of you may have seen, I don't think I used it in the spring, I think I used it for last year's conference, where I looked at a more holistic process management toolkit, where we looked at the mapping, the modeling, the simulation, the mining, the monitoring, etc. And we realized that, yeah, we were largely doing a lot of the mapping exercises, and a lot of the management was involving the people piece of the jigsaw. So for people, with people, by people, and the mining was very much related to the operational systems and data. So just as a reminder, that's where it fits in that overall toolkit. And sometimes we can get so focused on any one element. It doesn't matter whether we're focused on modeling and documentation for documentation's sake, or mining for mining's sake. But we need to look at things a little more broadly. So some of the challenges that I've seen, heard, you may see it differently, some of the vendors may say it differently, but 3 challenges that I see with what I'm going to call traditional process mining tools. We talked about the exploration. Well, the exploration in its phase 1 is all about cleansing and formatting the data, and it's a frequent obstacle. I want to do mining, but I can't plug the mining tool in because my data's not clean, it's not complete. How can you help me? And many of the tools are not proven to be ideally suited to data exploration. There are ways around it, and they can do some things, but they're not what I'm going to call the right tool for the job, or they don't have the full set of functionality. The second challenge, and I've talked about this at length before, is that process mining misses the human elements of process. You know, we've got to remember we're mining system logs. We're mining already automated processes in some way, shape, or form. Now, whether they were originally built as process applications, or whether they're simply transactional applications and we're building transaction chains, it's all about things inside the system. So when we look at things like low code, no code, RPA, etc., then process mining is a hot topic, but a very gray fit, in as much as we're talking about processes that may not be fully automated or indeed automated at all, and process mining can't help us there. We need something else. And then the third challenge is to remember that processes don't exist in a vacuum. If you look at a lot of the pricing models for many of the vendors, you'll see that they typically charge per process. Well, that's great, and the analysis is all around the singular process. But your organizations aren't made up of a singular process. Well, I mean, you could draw it as one complete end-to-end process, but it would be highly complex. In reality, there are many processes which interact in many different ways. There are processes that are occurring that you didn't even know were happening as a result of actually being compound through activities across multiple different processes that, when chained together in the eyes of the customer, is how they see the process. And then, of course, when we're running things like simulation, it's hard to simulate how to improve a singular process when the resource may be shared amongst other processes. So we need alternative ways of looking at how do we look at that overall process landscape, how do we visualize that, and how do we run simulation and indeed operational monitoring where we can look across all processes, just using process mining to then drill into or get insight into particular pieces, but taking into account of others. So these are the 3 challenges that I thought it might be useful in trying to address today. So when we look at it in terms of the overall diagram, so apologies for the bright red boxes. So in the first instance, I want to look at that connection between the mining and the operational data. So when we look at the data cleansing, then I want to bring in Sofia, and we'll have a chat around alternative ways at looking at mining, but involving more of those human elements and bringing those into the mix. And then lastly, an alternative way of looking at the visualization. And the way that I'm going to do this as we go through is through the lens of different vendors. So I'm going to be making some suggestions of tools and technologies. Some may be small vendors, some may be innovative in their approaches, and others may be just things that you hadn't necessarily either heard of or thought of. So we wanted to introduce you to 3 different vendors that you might not have considered, but maybe do want to consider in trying to overcome some of those challenges and bring them into that process management toolkit so that you can better solve a fuller range of problems. So starting off, let's take a little look at this data preparation area. So the vendor that I've picked to just share with you a little bit today is a vendor called Alteryx. Now, you'll note at the bottom of the screen here, and some of you may be aware of process mining tools that are now being either built with or working alongside things like Power BI and Qlik. So we're seeing that process mining and data analytics, business intelligence is coming together. Now, Alteryx, I think, have got a really neat solution. If you haven't looked at it, and by the way, one of the things is that I think that you may find it already exists in your organization. So Alteryx really easily allows you to clean and prepare data across many different sources. So you can select which inputs are coming in, how do you prepare, so you can run a whole set of rules to clean that data. If you want to reformat dates because the date from one system is different from the date from another, or indeed the date isn't in the format that you want, then there's a whole bunch of formulas that you can run to prepare that data, as well as connecting it through other systems. So if you've got a process that's running across, shall we say, an SAP, an Oracle, and Salesforce, well, with Alteryx, you can harmonize that, easily harmonize that data, cleansing it as is necessary, reformatting, and it works on both structured and unstructured data. So it's a great piece of technology to really help get that data ready for consumption in the process mining space. Some of you may have already seen, and I'm not sure whether Richard Rabin from Abbey will have mentioned it in his presentation, but Abbey, for example, have a relationship with a partnership with Alteryx. And so Alteryx are really well geared to working with data for working with that within a process mining area. So if you don't already have a tool that's your choice for dealing with this kind of things, then I would suggest that it's certainly a technology that's worth taking a look at. And if you're not sure about the requirement for it, then here was the statistics which I literally pulled earlier from the Alteryx website. Over 80% of analysis time is wasted on preparation and blending of data. Now, of course, they were predominantly looking at it from a business intelligence perspective, but the same is absolutely true for process mining, right? But the process mining piece would be 20% of the time. The data prep is 80% of the time, and anything we can do to reduce that time and make it easier has got to be something that's useful. So the use of a data analytics tool will, of course, speed up your time to effective process mining. And, I just point out that the chances are that you've already got these technologies in use within the organization. But it may be that you've got silos that are not talking to each other and you're not making best use of the skill sets that are available elsewhere. So that's a one to watch. They're certainly not a small vendor, but I've seen the technology in use. It makes a big difference, and I think it could really play a big part in helping you deliver those long-term results. So when I talk about process mining missing the human elements of process, then that makes me think of things like task mining, and other ways of capturing those human to human or human to system interactions. But even that isn't quite as straightforward as it appears. And this is where the vendor that I picked for us to look at today is Stereologic, who you've heard mentioned. And we're going to talk in a moment with Sofia Passova, who's the founder and president of Stereologic. I think if we slice Sofia up, we'll find that she's processed through and through. And the one thing that's, for me personally, is particularly interesting is that Sofia spent a lot of her time working in the modeling space and actually building a modeling vendor before she moved into the mining space. So Stereologic, way back in 2011, were a cool vendor, so it's certainly someone that's been around a while. And when it comes to figuring out, well, who would use them, then here's just 3 examples I pulled off the website for Genworth, Pitney Bowes, and Texas Life. So I see that Sofia has very kindly turned on her camera, so that's fantastic. I'm going to turn off the presentation. You'll need to unmute yourself, I think, Sofia, because I couldn't hear you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mark. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to people who are pioneers in process mining and task mining. Thank you.
So, my pleasure, and thank you so much for joining us. So, Sofia, I wanted to start us off because, when we were talking the other day about this, one of the things that I'm always intrigued by is that every technology is always out there, almost like looking for the problem to solve. Sometimes these are accidents looking for somewhere to happen. And it seems that for process mining, RPA and low code is the accident that they found that's like, all right, let's go jump on this. And so we're hearing a lot about the application of process mining to RPA. But I'm intrigued because I think that from talking to you, you've got an idea that traditional process mining isn't actually well suited to RPA or low code, no code, and that there's a better way of solving that problem. So how do you think we might consider solving it differently?
I absolutely agree with your vision that process mining tools cannot reflect what people do. But because RPA is created with idea to simplify behavior of people and automate people tasks, it's impossible to use only this approach, only process mining, to understand where is the best candidate for automation and what actually bots should do, which activities they need to perform. And it creates situations that only approaches based on analysis, modeling, recording on human system interactions allow to see what humans do. And from that viewpoint, task mining might more appropriate for RPA, if we talk about RPA.
Okay, so I can understand that and understand what you're saying there, that task mining does a much better job of capturing those requirements, whether it's for RPA for automation or indeed whether it's low code, no code, and other automations, because it's all requirements. But I've got a couple of things that jump to my mind. One is that don't all the RPA vendors already have task mining as part of their product? And surely, from what I'm seeing, the overhead of installing all of these remote desktop recorders, which appears to be the way that it's all being done. It doesn't matter whether it's the mainstream RPA vendors or whether it's the Microsofts and the Googles of this world. Everyone's got their desktop recorders, and suddenly we're administering thousands of recorders. Is it really practical?
Yeah, now many RPA vendors trying and have some results to automate collection of information about how people work. Yeah? And it's very good effort, very useful effort. As a result, many of them can automatically create PDD documentation for bot development. But from another side, major problem that industry needs now is not how to create small bot. It's pretty easy, yeah, because it's encapsulated task. Major problem how to find right candidate, how to understand what is the task that need to be automated, how to prioritize it. And because RPA vendors not focus on entire picture, on holistic picture what's happening at company, but works with separated tasks, artificially sometimes separated tasks. It does not allow them to see entire picture, to see distributed processes, to see synchronized tasks, to see many spaghetti type things that happening in actual world, actual environment, working environment.
Okay, and so that's an issue they've got in terms of the type of technology, but what about the overhead for the administering? Is this a problem? Yeah, I mean, do you find it's a problem for clients?
Yes. Additional moment that they require installation on client computers, and it creates some time problems and some administration problems and security problems. Yeah, it delays implementation of RPA, but from origin, RPA was created as quick solution, for automation tasks. Yeah? And any delays connected to security, connected to installation, they don't allow to resolve this problem efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at a video that you guys have from Scott Gorman, I think it was, who was doing a customer testimonial for Stereologic, and he implied that when he was using Stereologic that there was no administration overhead. So, I mean, is there something different in the way that you guys are doing the recording compared to what other people are doing?
Absolutely. And from the beginning, we created this company Stereologic in 2008. And from the beginning, we had one goal: to make it simple, to make it quick, to make it efficient, and not to create new problems for customers, because customers have enough problems before we come with our solution. And we have approach, and this approach patent, we have US patent for this approach that allows practically in no time to create picture, dynamic model of operation. And you can see not only isolated tasks, but you can see how many people work with many tasks in actual production environment. And we have all what the market requires now: private and security, obfuscation, and we generate comprehensive process maps and comprehensive information, and also most important maybe that it could be used not only for RPA, yeah, but we create some models that could be used for low-code solutions, for big transformation projects, and we have outstanding case studies about it. As example, RPA we accelerate from implementation from 7 weeks to 4 weeks to 2 weeks. For large transformation projects, we have huge savings and improve customer experience. Yeah, and we have numbers about it. But if you ask why it's happening, because it's not trying to understand process on highest level as process mining vendors do, and not to understand on deep level, but separate task, but it's holistic approach to understand, to have model of actual operations, of actual work of people, and our goal not to make it difficult for client and we resolve it. We can start, if you ask me, could you please start tomorrow? We will start tomorrow. We don't need any preparation. We generate logs automatically in no time. And most interesting results will be during the customer relax and only report to managers. Everything perfect. Nice teams, nice results. That's how we work. But it's huge work below table.
So one of my other worries with task mining is you know, and I'm not plugging myself in, but I was writing a paper literally about the different ways that task mining can be helpful. But so many people still see it as Big Brother and are very concerned with the fact that actually when I'm running task mining or recording, as it were, specifically on a desktop, then I'm recording everything that someone's doing. So, you know, they go check their Facebook page. The next thing we know, I'm seeing how much time they spent, what they're doing in Facebook, etc. So if one is using a task mining product like yours or indeed other people's, what safeguards do we have to find that balance between business necessary information to help improve our organization versus not being seen to be overly snooping on people or indeed you know, having issues with privacy?
Yeah, I understand your question, and you can believe or not, but it's interesting. But many employees of our clients, yeah, very happy with what we do and what task mining and process mining vendors do. They happy because they have first opportunity to show that they work better than the other employees. Before they could talk about it forever, nobody believes. But now you have actual metrics, what's happening, how many tasks they've done, how much time they spent, and you can analyze why some of them better than others. Also, if they have some special tricks, some special methods how to do it, it's easier for them to explain. Also, do know, employees have many problems with IT systems at any company. With IT systems with a lot of bugs and errors. And it allows our approach to record and see everything what's happening at the company, allows them to demonstrate it to management, because you know this forever argue about who's the reason of problems, business or IT. Now you have solutions to show what actually happened. And for one major bank in Canada, we helped to accelerate transformation, post-transformation implementation in 10th time, because we seen and demonstrated how many problems happened, who reason of this problem, human, systems, or processes. If you have some metrics that allows you not to talk about, not to dream about, not to argue, but to show it's actual information about processes, time, problems, reasons of problems. It's very important.
Great, thanks. And then one last question, because this is one that's doing my head in because I can't actually figure out how. But when we were speaking in our pre-briefing, you were talking about how you enable the mining of processes without logs. So in my head, I can see task mining, running recorders, capturing what people are doing and capturing the activities that people are doing. I can see process mining running on logs and capturing what's going on with the system. I'm curious as to how one captures processes without using the log data.
Yeah, Yeah, I understand. We spent a lot of time to create this mechanism, we patent this mechanism. We have a lot of different information, including screen recognition information, yeah? And we accumulate this information. Our engine accumulates, collects this information and converts it to comprehensive processes. And you can have spaghetti, you can have distributed processes and tasks. It's goal and task of our engine to make it nice, comprehensive, linear, and it allows to see how much time was actually spent of task. Yeah. As an example, it may be a customer waiting for results for 3 days, but task only 3 minutes. And you can see the task is 3 minutes, you can see why it happened not in the beginning, but after, who delayed, various contradictions, and all other things. It's maybe a major secret of our technology that all of it done without customer involvement at all. We train employees for 15 minutes how to push button recording, and we don't touch business people at all, maybe maximum 1 hour, that's it, only to take the instructions, and we offer our reports about process maps, about time, about tasks, about which tasks should be automated before, prioritization. We do it based on actual metrics of time and frequency of appearance of this task. And yeah, everything inside is hidden from customer and hidden from world, external world.
Sofia, thank you so much. We could spend so much time going on that area. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us today and to share your experiences. I'm sure there's a lot of people also scratching their heads and trying to figure out the processes without logs, and so I guess the best thing for them to do is to just reach out to you either on LinkedIn or through the website, and I'm sure that you'll be only too happy to explain that in a little more detail. So Sofia, thank you, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you for this opportunity. Good luck. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so if you weren't making a note as I was introducing, I'll just throw up the a couple of pieces here. So there we've got the web address, and you can see that from Stereologic perceive themselves as operating in the operational excellence, process mining, task mining, and digital twin space. And I just put up a little timeline there from the website, so you can see a little bit about where they come from and where they're going. And I think they're doing some really interesting stuff. I mean, one thing that may not have been clear from what Sofia was saying, and my line was breaking up a little bit, but when it comes to that recording, for me, what they have that's unique is the fact that it's a cloud-based recorder. So there are no desktop deployments. So for all those of you that have looked at how to deploy all those hundreds or thousands of desktop recorders, it seems that Stereologic have a technology that says you don't need to. And so in that respect, I think that they're an interesting play for you in your toolkit, regardless of what other process mining tool that you have. I mean, we already know that Signavio stroke SAP are partnering with third parties. We know that some of the vendors have now started to introduce some task mining, but I'm not aware of any process mining vendor that's actually offering us, you know, computer vision, cloud-based computer vision task mining for us all to jump onto. So even if you think I've already got my process mining tool, I think you may want to consider where something like this could play into it. And certainly if you're in the RPA space and looking at those multi-process issues, then this could be something worth looking at, in my opinion. Okay, so moving on. So the third area that I wanted to cover was, I mentioned that processes don't exist in a vacuum. And here I want to give a plug, and again, with all these vendors, I have no relationships with these vendors. I was just purely looking at some of my research, and I guess sharing with you guys some of the research over the last few months that I've been doing, and looking at saying, well, what else is out there? How else can we plug gaps? And what I'm about to share with you now is a very, very small vendor that I think is highly unlikely that many of you will have heard of, called Emma 3D. Now, if you go to the Emma 3D website, and some of you may even be typing in now to see what's going on, the initial part of their website is talking about these enterprise meta maps and talks about using them in the context of pre-sales, complex pre-sales situations and for demonstrations. In principle, what Emma 3D is or does is provide automatically generated 3D visualizations of whether it's your technology sector, whether it's systems and processes. So it's a really good actually enterprise architecture tool for providing a 3D visualization. And let me give you a couple of slides here to give you a couple of images. So these images, which are not looking brilliant, I grabbed them as screen grabs off some video. So please don't look at the vendor for the quality of these. This is because of what I grabbed. But here we can see these were automatically generated models. So we're pointing it at the data, and then it's generating these models, which is fascinating to me, because when we look at things like digital twins and process monitoring for process intelligence, we actually want to be looking at a range of processes. And often when we're looking through a process mining tool, we're only looking at one. We don't see all the interactions. So with Emma 3D, we've got an alternative visualization, which is different from our traditional, shall we say, design time modeling. Now what we're seeing is real-time operational modeling of the data and systems. And I'm not sure if it shows too easily on the next one, but let's just see. So here we can see, just another flavor of it. Now, if you look at some of the white dots over here in the bottom right, the white dots are actually representing cases or objects flowing through the system. So it's actually showing you the flow so that you can literally see where those flows are running to, from, where the bottlenecks are, how they interact. And when you do your resource planning, the resource runs across the whole piece of the jigsaw. So I think it's fascinating and is a great way of overcoming, for me, the limitation of many process mining tools, particularly those that don't link with, shall we say, a BPMN tool, and therefore have no connection to models, and make it really hard for us to actually look at that interaction across processes or actually do resource planning and resource management. So it's just one out there that I think is well worth taking a look. So I'm suggesting that process mining is what you do after you finish the exploration. So investigate what business intelligence or data management tools you already have and seek to leverage them. Consider adding specialized task mining to your toolkit, and certainly using it for automation projects before feeding into process mining tools. And have a look at what alternative visualization and simulation tools you might bring in. Emma 3D is one that I found. Maybe you know of some others, and if you do, by the way, anyone out there, then I'd love to know and to learn about them and how they're going to complement to give you that richer toolkit. So I'm about to hand back to Jose, and he's going to no doubt have some interesting questions. And depending on where we run on time, and I know we're running a little bit tight, but for sure, I think that one of the areas that we can certainly discuss, Jose, is the issues around privacy, which I think is a big topic that we just don't see enough talked about and enough coverage. So I'm going to turn off my screen share and bring back Jose.
And Mark, thank you for the presentation and the insight, and for Sofia's participation as well. There was a little bit of a hard time hearing her audio at times, but we were able to capture most of what she said, and helped add some perspective from someone who's on the field making it happen right now with clients. Now, the question that you alluded to there is one that has come up not only in this session but in previous sessions as well, especially when it comes to task mining. That now you have the little recording device that's capturing what someone is doing, you know, in an Excel spreadsheet, and so trying to capture that to later on create a model, build that into the model for RPA and low code applications. So where is the line drawn, you know, and where how is privacy protected under that type of system? And this may vary also from country to country. So if you can talk a little bit about privacy and what you see in the marketplace right now with respect to these applications.
And I think that's exactly the point that I was hoping you were going to ask, Jose, because I think geography is the most important thing right now. And we can look at it as almost three ways round. And it's no different from other areas of privacy, with the EU absolutely out there in mandating those rights, to the extent that it's still questionable how well some of the things like task mining and other intrusive systems can actually be used. And in fact, we almost get to the point that says, actually, the employee has got to give you the permission and actually gets to go through and say, yes, I'm going to allow you to record this, I'm not going to allow you to record that. And it's a reverse of Big Brother. It's actually saying, actually, little brother's got to give me all the permissions. And it may go too far, right? It may undermine it to such an extent that the data you're gathering is not really helping. So I think that it becomes a really important internal sales job to sell to Jose the idea that said, look, this may sound intrusive, but here's how we can do it in a relatively unintrusive way. And this is the benefit to you. So it really actually brings a smile to my face, because it says, gee, I've got to explain to Jose and justify to him how this automation is going to help him, not just tell him to do it because I'm smarter and I've got the better technology. No, I've actually got to show how it's, and if I show how it helps you, then you know what? You're likely to give me permission. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum and take another rather large country that's still well down in terms of privacy and is likely to be mandating it. And quite frankly, I'm going to say this, and you know, I know a lot of our audience are in the US, and hey, travel willing, we'll all be together in December. But I'm going to risk saying this, that this is the type of technology that many US employees are going to work hard to undermine. Because if we just look at the news today, you know, big tech companies are now going to reduce your salary because you're working from home and you're saving on the travel costs. No one's talking about the fact that they're saving on office costs, but it's just this whole, it's all about me. It's all about me, and I don't care about you. And with 3.8 million Americans changing jobs in May, then sooner or later, someone's going to get the understanding that, you know, actually, if I don't care about you, you're not going to care about me. So we haven't yet seen the privacy issues really kicking off in the US. I'm sure we will. Canada is over there somewhere in the middle, having to try and play nice with the US, but adopting stuff from Europe. But many of the technologies have the ability to turn off what they see, so they don't have to be invasive. The trouble is they can be, and it becomes an employer ethics issue rather than technology issue.
Yeah, this is a topic that we could easily fill the hour with. And I have a minute left, and I want to ask you a question about the market and evolution of these technologies in general, because you're so well positioned and working as an advisor for so many of these technology companies and their end users. You have a tremendous background in research as well in the market. So I must ask you this question based on the audience feedback. And the question is, some of these technologies are no longer that new anymore. You know, we have robotics process automation for a while around, the process mining, digital twins, and they overlap in a lot of different areas. You know, how do you see this market and technologies progressing? Do you see that there will be a consolidation? Because I'm going to tell you, as an end user, it's a pain in the neck to be dealing with all these little players and these different technologies that they seem to do the same thing. Is it gonna consolidate? Is it gonna continue to bifurcate and become more specialized? What is your view of technology in the marketplace? And I'm thinking process mining, RPA, digital twins, and related type of technologies?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is we're going to see some sort of coming together, a convergence, more of a convergence occurring probably going into next year. I mean, we've seen, I mentioned, another 2 acquisitions in process mining. I'm well known, as you know, on record of saying I think that most other process mining vendors will disappear into some other stack, whether it's an ERP, whether it's an RPA, whether it's low code, no code, BPM. I don't really mind. I mean, to be honest, it was all originally part of BPMS in the BPMS suites, and it came out, got well developed, and it's going to go back because it's a capability and it's functionality that we all need. To your point, what we don't need is to be fighting with an overlapping vendor saying, well, I don't just do process mining, I now do RPA. So, well, hang on a minute, I've got my RPA vendor saying they do process mining, and neither of you do the other thing well. So in part, we've got the obvious one that says, gee, if you're struggling in one market, you've got to go grab another. But I think we're going to see these things come together, but we're also going to see other pieces break apart. But we're going to see an ecosystem decoupling based on APIs, but I don't think we're going to see it in the RPA low code, no code. I think the low code, no code is going to make life easier in this RPA process mining world because normal service will be resumed, in my opinion. RPA distorted the world. The RPA vendors got massive valuations very, very quickly that stopped them being acquired. Normally, those types of technology would have been acquired by an IBM or an SAP much earlier, but no one could afford them. So now everyone else has had to build alternative solutions, low code, no code, whatever, and the RPA vendors have got to find another way of moving out of traditional RPA before the others come get them. So unfortunately for you, the next 12 months is going to be bumpy, but normal service will be resumed.
That's a great perspective, as always, Mark. We truly appreciate you bringing these insights and practical applications to our global community. And on behalf of that global audience, I would like to say thanks to you, to Sofia, and for a great presentation and insights. That, ladies and gentlemen, Mark McGregor, always a insightful perspectives on the market, on the technologies, and on the services that are available. This wraps up our day 2 of Process Mining Live. I want to thank every one of you for being with us and asking some really insightful questions, great commentary throughout all of the sessions. We encourage you to join us on LinkedIn. You can look under my name, José Pires, on LinkedIn for the posting of this conference. And you see what other speakers are saying, what the participants are saying, questions that are being raised there. So please make a stop, say hello, say thanks to our sponsors, say thanks to our speakers for providing this environment for us to discuss and learn together. Tomorrow, I'll do a quick preview for what's coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to kick off at the same usual time and with a presentation from the Director of Product Management from ServiceNow. And he's going to talk about the journey from process mining to business and continuous improvement and optimization. So he's going to discuss that on how that has been at ServiceNow. Then we're going to shift into healthcare. And into healthcare, we're going to have the leader and data scientist at Signify Health talking to us about how they're using process mining and really identifying significant value creation opportunities in healthcare. So he's going to be talking about some use cases related to healthcare process mining. Then we're going to shift to Dallas in Texas, and we're going to bring Rameshwar Balanagu, who is the head of digital automation and enterprise architecture for Avaya. And Rameshwar is going to be discussing how they're using process insights to drive transparency and productivity while overcoming compliance concerns. So again, a real practitioner and leader in industry discussing how they're applying these techniques. And we're going to wrap up the day and the conference tomorrow with a tremendous presentation, bringing you the lead enterprise architect for Mars. And I'm not talking about the planet, I'm talking about the company. I'm sure they get that joke all the time. And that is Satish Kamath. Satish is going to talk to us on how to map the real impact of process mining on your business, and specifically how they're doing this at Mars. It's a tremendous the transformation journey that Mars has been on, and very, very significant results. And he's going to go deep into the practical aspects of their implementation of process mining and digital technologies in general, as he is the lead enterprise architect for the company. So great cross-industry leaders sharing their expertise and real practical insights again with us tomorrow. For all of you, wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to meeting everyone back tomorrow at this broadcast. Thank you, everyone.